People all hate scraping by, orphaned, destitute, ill-fated. But true dukes and emperors call themselves just that. Yeah, we do all hate scraping by, that's for sure. Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome back to another Tao Te Ching reading today with myself, Mark. I am also here with, as always, Mr. Adam.
Adam, how are you?
And we have a special guest here, my lovely wife, Natalie. She's going to bring in some of the more divine feminine aspects to this because we're all about balance here. We're all about, not just doing the he, him stuff. We got to bring all these different water and fire, different energies in, masculine, feminine. We've talked about
Female,
that
male.
in several different videos, and we're going to bring a little bit more of that into this one today. And we're going to do a super classic one today, one of the most famous chapters of this Tao Te Ching, which is number 42. Number 42. And I'm going to kick it off to Adam here to read his version, and then we'll bring in a couple of other versions as well. So,
Yes. So
Adam, over to you, sir.
my pleasure. This one's from the Ursula Le Guin translation, and it begins, the way bears one, or you could say the Tao. The Tao bears one. The one bears two. The two bear three. The three bear the 10,000 things. I feel like I want to almost put in birth here because I know that's probably going to be easier to people's ears
That's
because
what my
that's the
version said.
traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah, is the Tao gives birth to the one, one gives birth to two, two gives birth to three, and three gives birth to all things, or the 10,000 things. The 10,000 things carry the yin on their shoulders and hold in their arms the yang, whose interplay of energy makes harmony. People despise orphans, widowers, outcasts, yet that's what kings and rulers call themselves. Whatever you lose, you've won. Whatever you win, you've lost. What others teach, I say too. Violence and aggression destroy themselves. My teaching rests on that.
Mm, yeah, awesome. I got a few
Yeah.
different things here, mostly the same, but just a couple things I wanted to read here. We have the same start, the way or the Tao give birth to one, and to two to three. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then this one says, then the 10,000 things shouldered yin and embraced yang, blending qi to establish harmony.
Mm.
So similar concept, just a little
Mm-hmm.
different wording there. And I like how they brought qi into it. And
Mm-hmm.
then at the end here, I only teach what the people teach. Tyranny and force never come to a natural end. I've
Mm.
taken the people as my schoolmaster.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of cool stuff in here. Before we bring in the more divine feminine version, is it different in some ways or
A little bit, but not a lot.
not enough to?
Starts in exactly the same way. And it does use the word birth.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Birth.
Mm-hmm.
but your version used gives way. Is that what it
It
says?
says
Yeah.
bears one.
Bears. Oh, bears. Okay,
But bear
that's
like, like birthing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're
exactly,
bearing,
yeah, bearing fruit,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very.
One thing that it does have different, which I thought was really beautiful, is it says 10,000 things carry yin on their backs and yang in their arms with chi in the
Mm-hmm.
breath. Harmony follows.
Chi.
Mm.
There you
I
go.
like that.
Yeah, so it's just similar. 10,000 things shouldered yin and embraced yang, and
Yeah.
then blending chi to establish harmony. Yeah, so let's dissect this a little bit here. So obviously, like I said, this is a super famous one of the 81 chapters. This is one that's been talked about a lot and really brings a lot of key concepts of Taoism to the forefront
Mm-hmm.
here, especially with the one to two to three concept. So in Chinese, we have the terms Wuji and Tai Chi. And Wuji is a separate, it's Wu and Ji, so W U and then J I, and then Tai Chi, which is that exercise. I call it an exercise system, but it's way more than that. It's a mind body ancient healing mechanism that we employ that is spelled TAI in a lot of cases JI, or in the more American version, it's TAICHI, but it's Tai Chi. And it's not chi as in the QI, the life force energy. It's a different word, different meaning. And Tai Chi is really what the yin yang symbol is called. That yin yang, that duality, black and white swirling symbol that we all know is called the Tai Chi or the Tai Chi, which is supreme ultimate in the very loose translation. And then Wu Ji is really talking about the oneness, all things, the Tao, right? The Tao is the universe, all things, and it includes duality. Humans start breaking into the duality component when we start defining things and looking at how things work. We bring that duality component into our sphere, but it's really contained in the one. The one creates the two. And then from the two, we have that like two parents, right? Birthing a child now, or seeds, or there's so many different ways we can look at two coming together to birth one. Even in the Christianity sense, which I know you're very familiar with, we have Adam and Eve, and then they have their child, and we're all descendants from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one allegory or myth we can look at. And from that comes everything, which they call in Chinese philosophy the 10,000 things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this world, I think we all have 10,000 things each. We can probably say the 10 billion
Lord.
things, but the 10,000 things is just one of their poetic ways of talking about
Mm-hmm.
all things, which comes
Infinity.
back to the one.
Yeah.
But it's just a way of looking at how these things kind of are distilled out and get bigger and bigger and bigger into the grand, even from us. So we are one being, but we have thousands and thousands of cells that are all coalescing back into the one. So there's a lot of unique things to look at here in this very first passage, which is very famous, and talking about the yin and the yang being
Mm-hmm.
embraced and held, the yang following the yin, and
Mm-hmm.
the chi being established in the breath, like in your version. There's just so
Yeah,
much to break down in this one first
True.
paragraph. But what comes to mind for you, Adam, in some of this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I feel like I was just really drawn because I hadn't heard this one in a while, and I was really drawn to this piece about the 10,000 things carry the yin on their shoulders and hold in their arms the yang, or some version of that. And then also this idea whose interplay of energy makes harmony, right? Like to me, this feels like a really important cosmological statement that feels very different. Like you mentioned, the Christianity that I was really steeped in, very different from like the Christian perspective, which is sort of like I think brings in a lot of that will of this divine creator that like speaks let there be light, and then there's light, right? There's sort of like this divine ordering that's happening on like this one kind of dimension of will, whereas this is more talking about how everything's actually coming out of this beautiful dance and interplay of these energies of this yin and yang that's blended, that everything is arising out of this interplay, not like a one directed will. So
Yes.
it's very different cosmologically. And I love this idea of like carry the yin on their shoulders. So it's sort of like, okay, there's this more like nurturing kind of energy, potentially more receptive energy. It's being carried on the shoulders. And then you have this and hold in their arms the yang, where it's like this idea of like this thing that's like very like maybe more dominant, more like pulling, more forceful, more action oriented, is being held in his arms. So it's like it's kind of feels like this beautiful. It sort of feels like in words or poetry what you might expect of that yin yang symbol that has the little dot of white in the sea of black and the little dot of black in the sea of white, right? Like this interplay, this, and the fact that this interplay of yin and yang is like the engine for all of life. Like to me there's just so much packed in that little sentence there
Mhm.
cosmologically that feels really exciting as a reader.
In our current world, we kind of see the opposite, where the yang is like on our backs, like
Yeah.
overpulling us, and we nurture the yin. That's
Yeah.
not really the way it should be. It should be that
No.
role reversal of
Yeah.
nurturing that yang and
Yep.
letting the yin kind of drive some things.
Uh-huh. Kind of lead, like some more lead
well,
in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think, Adam?
well, this is so interesting. That is such a beautiful like visual of how we're really supposed to be nurturing and being compassionate to ourselves in our steps and in an everyday action, because
Mm-hmm.
I've certainly lived a different existence as far as that,
Mm-hmm.
like action,
Mm-hmm.
so different. But I really drawn into that first paragraph because it's so intriguing. When we look at like sacred geometry and you look at the
Mm-hmm.
Vesica Piscis and you look at
Mm-hmm.
the mandorla is the almond in the middle, right? And that's like
Mm-hmm.
I've been shown that's the cosmic womb. And
Mm-hmm.
that cosmic womb is the birthing point, but that duality must become a trinity. So there's only harmony when there's a trinity in effect. And um, recently I've just dived into this topic because there's crop circles showing up that's showing these kind of.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's like a whole
Yep.
other thing. But it's just what I think is so beautiful is thinking about how I think we're living in a time where actually this trinity is being birthed once again.
Mm-hmm.
And because that is actually the harmony, the chi and the breath that brings the harmony is the breath of this trinity really being birthed again, because that allows us to move from this dualistic, separated, constrained system to actually embrace this cosmic birthing,
Mm-hmm.
organic way of creating again,
Mm-hmm.
to allow harmony to actually enter into not only like the system but into each of our lives. And it's almost that entry point that allows these other things to do the rearrangement,
Mm-hmm.
being able to act and flow rather flow in action.
I have my version here. There's a couple of paragraphs in, and the one that you read is similar. This one says some things, and this is the David Hinton version, by the way. Some things gain by loss, and some lose by gain. And
Mm-hmm.
what was that paragraph in your version?
Yeah, it kind of says something similar where it says like whatever you lose, you've won. Whatever you win, you've lost.
Chapter 48 actually talks about this in some ways too, where uh, the more we try to gain and win, we actually lose a lot of ourselves along that way because we're losing sight of the
Mm,
greater picture. And then through loss, we can gain perspective, we can gain
mm-hmm.
knowledge, we can, we talked about the one about failure. It can be an opportunity to learn. We see all of these things as negative, but they can be so powerful and changing in our lives when we lose stuff. We lose a job, you lose a loved one, you lose money, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. It can reframe your perspectives in a lot of ways to have a more holistic existence and persevere through the challenges. So I really like how that weaves that in because that's really talking about the harmony as well.
Yeah. And Le Guin, she adds this little kind of like note on the bottom that I feel like is speaking to what you're speaking to a bit, which she says, beginning with a pocket cosmology, this chapter demonstrates the quote interplay of energy of yin and yang by showing how low and high, winning and losing, destruction and self-destruction reverse themselves,
Mm,
each turning into its seeming opposite.
mhm.
And I feel like this kind of lends with a lot of other stuff I've come across, especially with like with Jung and like Neoplatonists and stuff, where like archetypal energy tends to kind of move towards its pole, towards its opposite. So people that really know, like play with archetypal energies tend to really understand polarity in that that sort of seems like it's a natural thing that energy does, which I think is what this is speaking to cosmologically, that like the energy of opposites balancing and rebalancing is what drives so much of the 10,000 things of reality. And so like I kind of like how this saying like everything is imbued with this dynamism kind of inherently and it manifests in different ways and in different contexts.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um
this says the violent and bold do not die a natural death, which is similar to your guys's. But the interesting thing,
mm,
like, to that point, it's also stating that the violent, so there's an extremism, if we will,
Extreme.
the evil, the whatever,
mhm,
and then there's bold, the valiant, the too valiant that's they're so so blinded by just wanting glory, for example.
mhm,
And it's not dying a natural death, meaning you're literally causing yourself to move outside. So extremes
mhm,
are
Self-destruction.
not organic, they're not original creation, and they're
mm,
not harmony. So we see that
mhm,
playing out right now. the death of extremes because those aren't natural.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Through extreme comes stagnation or toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
And even in our own bodies, we talk about
Mm-hmm.
health and things like that, where we have stagnation, we have toxicity, and that's because of excessive lifestyles
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff that is force fed to us that it just doesn't work on a vibrationally harmonious way.
Yeah.
You got to get all that stuff flowing. So extremes, and everyone knows this, extremes are always the problem, but
Mm-hmm.
somehow life tends to pull a lot of people into these extremes, and it's never fruitful. It might be in the immediate, but in the long term it's very destructive.
Well, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
natural.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's
leads to
unnatural.
an early demise, the
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
Either way.
and not a natural end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing, like all those efforts to control tend to come back in your face, right? And you realize, like, oh, shoot, I'm just putting myself into a bind by my efforts to control the free-flowing nature around me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anything else you'd like to bring into this? We didn't talk about that second paragraph. People all hate scraping by, orphaned, destitute, ill-fated, but true dukes and emperors call themselves just that. Yeah, we do all hate scraping by, that's for sure.
Yeah, this says what people loathe to be alone, outcast, and hungry are the titles the royal take on for themselves.
Mm.
So this almost has an organic feeling of the true royalty, not the tyrannical in a way, meaning
Yeah.
um
The noble.
the noble. It's these words like royal, or what does yours say?
Dukes and emperors.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
there's probably some maybe hijacking, not hijacking, but just
Mistranslation.
misinterpretations. Yeah, like the people that are truly
Yours says kings, right, Adam?
Yeah, it says yes, that's what kings and rulers call themselves. And they said people despise orphans, widowers, outcasts, yet that's what kings and rulers call themselves. Yeah, this is a really enigmatic one.
Mhm.
Uh, I think I agree with what you're feeling like. It feels like it's talking about, yeah, like a higher octave rulership that is not afraid to lose things,
Yeah.
especially like their own ego, right? Because like a king and a ruler consistently has to maybe check their own sort of advantage in order to do what's best for the people, which usually might involve like some sacrifice, right? Like that's
Totally.
what, they used to call, that used to be part of the culture of wealth in certain cultures, but it seems to like lose generations. And like in America, they used to call it, what's it, noblesse? Oh, man, I'm butchering the name, but there was a term for it. And actually, in my studies of American history, it used to be considered really like politics was meant for wealthy people because it was felt that wealthy people were more likely to be able to rise above their personal selfish needs because they had like a base level survival. Therefore, because they had like a higher level of like goods, they would somehow have a higher level of morality or ethics because they wouldn't be like out of desperation
Yeah.
trying to do things unethical. That was the idea, and clearly we see how that's gone like completely in an
Happened.
opposite direction in our
Yeah.
culture now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where it's like, people are seemingly extracting more and more from the world for more and more selfish, crazy reasons like super yachts or bunkers to survive,
Exactly.
events or
We've
whatever.
talked about this in a previous video where the ruler should rule from the valley, not
Yes.
peak,
And that's like
right?
one of the
Not,
biggest messages in this
yeah.
book.
Instead of looking, being at the top, looking down upon your
Yeah.
subject, be in that valley, be vulnerable,
Yep.
right? Have that sacrifice and look up to your people, have everything go upstream of you. And that's where you get more respect from the people.
Yeah.
But
And by not
we don't
needing the
see that.
respect from the people,
But we don't
like
see
not
that.
Yeah. And leadership is usually, this concept of leading by example, not
hmm
by
Not,
dictatorship.
and not
hmm
Yeah.
expectations of
And
getting things back.
exactly. And so this says, alone, outcast, and hungry. What true leader has felt all of those things and
hmm
will be all of those things for the betterment of the all?
Yeah. And to your
Yes.
Yeah.
sacrifice,
Yeah.
right?
hmm
Mm.
And the extreme level of that would be like martyrdom. But
Yeah.
that there
That's
we go.
another
There we go into
story.
the extreme versions again.
Yeah. Because there's, that layer between martyrdom and then there's choice. That free will aspect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right. Well, it's an epic one. It's a famous one. It's a wonderful one. Number 42. We'd love to hear what you all think. Drop a line in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Share with anyone and everyone who would love to talk about this kind of stuff, philosophy or otherwise, just life. Just life. Let's talk about life more. Drop a line in the comments, like I said, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Natalie.